Welcome back, football fanatics, to the First and 10 Club. I'm your host, Mark D, and week 9 is in the books. CMC is back. Well, he was back. Now he's back on the injury report. So, we got to watch that. Dallas gave the Steelers all they could handle. And as for what I did last week, well, I went 3-1 on my show picks, thanks to the Chargers finding a way to lose yet again. And for the week, I finished 9-5 overall again. So, can't complain about that. My bold predictions were almost 100% right. The Jets did lose by less than a touchdown. There were 9 TDs in the Buffalo and Seattle game. And Mr. Rodgers, well, Aaron Rodgers, I predicted for 350 yards and 3 TDs. He went for 305 yards and 4 TDs. So, I can't really say it's 100% accurate, but overall, real happy with my bold predictions last week. Pretty on point. So let's stop wasting time and let's get to the review of the games. And we'll start with that game, the Thursday night game, Green Bay versus San Francisco. Look, I'm going to tip my hat to San Francisco for their efforts. They are absolutely decimated. Between COVID and injuries this year, literally, I'm serious. I think the Water Boy is playing, the Towel Boy. I think the concession stand people, if you want to play, all you got to do is sign an affidavit. Who knows? But a virtually unknown this week, Mike Davis actually put up a hell of a stat line, and we're going to talk about that even more when we get to running out the clock this week. But, that was probably the lone bright spot for San Francisco because what they rely on is the running game. And honestly, I was with a lot of the pundits out there, a lot of the analysts. They thought this would be a good spot for the San Francisco running backs, but Green Bay took the run game away. And they did this by Aaron Rodgers coming out and just putting up points. Points, 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 points. They went to the air right away. They didn't try and play a slow, methodical game. They just went full throttle, and they come out the winner in that game. The next game that I want to look at, talk about where I thought there might be points scored and just a defense that I was expecting to not come to play, was Denver versus Atlanta. And I picked Denver in this game, but Atlanta pulled out the win. Honestly, they played some really inspired football, I felt, this week, especially on D. Not flawless, but you could definitely tell there was more urgency, more effort. Deion Jones had an incredible week, and Denver just couldn't get enough going. And it brings me back to a point I've brought up before, which is really starting to scratch and question whether Drew Lock will be the long-term solution here. I'm not seeing the steps forward that I was hoping to see this year. They're getting a little bit healthier. I know they have Cortland Sutton, but getting Patrick back, that's a big boost for Denver. But it's not clicking completely yet. This is a game they should have won, a secondary they should have exploited, and it just didn't really seem to happen. And talking about secondaries to exploit, well, that takes us into our next game, which is Seattle versus Buffalo. I fully expected this game to be high scoring, and to be honest, I kind of thought it would be the reverse. But Buffalo is the team that came out and kind of made a statement here at home. Buffalo got an easy D to get healthy on for offense. That is for sure. But one thing you see is Moss is starting to emerge as the focal point in the running game, and that's a good thing, especially for fantasy. Pay attention to that. Moss is definitely a buy low candidate. If you can get him, go out and get him because the role, I believe, is going to expand, and that could be a difference maker come playoffs and championship week. Seattle's D is just trash. I've never seen a defense in Seattle this bad. I really thought they'd be more aggressive at the trade deadline to try and fix some of these situations, and it's just not happening. You have to love the offense, especially because their defense is that bad. They're going to be in shootouts every single week. For fantasy purposes, it is gold. Keep rolling out. Wilson, keep rolling out Metcalf, keep rolling out Lockett. I know he didn't have the greatest week this week, but um, again, they're matchup proof. They're going to put points up. With that in mind, and we're talking about Seattle this coming week for fantasy purposes, you have to go with Goff if you can. The Rams coming in there, they definitely have the passing weapons, and Seattle has not proved at all that they can stop it. So great streaming option. He is available in a lot of shallow leagues, 8 and 10 team leagues, even in some 12 team leagues. So if he's out there on waiver wire or you're fortunate enough to have him on your team, definitely look at starting him this week. Another game that I got right because I'm not very high on the Bears overall, but Tennessee knocks off the Bears. And look, besides the Bears have no running game. They have none. Stop talking about Montgomery like, oh, he's that serviceable, reliable. No, he's the body that's there. That definitely needs to be a priority in the offseason is fixing the running game. Um, maybe more so than the fact that I still don't think Chicago has their franchise quarterback. I don't buy Foles. I don't get it. I don't understand the hype for Foles. I know he had a great stat line this week, especially in terms of fantasy purposes. I just don't think he is that franchise start every week quarterback. I think he is the savior. I think he played that role great when he had the chance in Philadelphia. But again, in Philadelphia, he came in, he was the savior, he's a folk legend there, but he's been to multiple teams other than that and just can't get it done. Like the proof is in the pudding, people. A PPP. Proof pudding people. Okay. Uh so yeah, and on Tennessee's side of it, it wasn't a super offensive juggernaut game for them, but they were smart. They were smart in how they played this game. They did enough to win, and they focused on their core three, with the also including Tannehill. But the offense ran through AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, and they finally got Jonnu Smith back involved. And I think if they keep that formula, I think Tennessee has this strong chance to re-solidify itself. I know they had the back-to-back losses, but I think they're going to re-solidify themselves. I think Indy's going to struggle a little bit. I know I was high on them early in the year. I just don't think Indy's there this year. I was wrong in that aspect, and I think Tennessee should be able to claim this division easily. Talking about divisions to claim easily, well, here's one that's just a hodgepodge. I'm talking about the NFC East, talking about the Washington football team versus the New York Giants. I thought Washington would come out and win this one. They didn't. Um, I wasn't real happy with the way they looked. The Giants get the win. In my opinion, they're not using Gibson enough. Um, I know he had the weird fumble early in the game, but really that first play for Washington with Gibson running the ball, like that was the summary of the day. It was sloppy, it was messy, and coming out of a bye, I'm really disappointed. I'm disappointed in Rivera. I'm disappointed in Jack Del Rio. The teams did not look like they were prepared to play this game. They really didn't. Um, November, on another note, November is just a horrendously bad month to be a Washington quarterback as Kyle Allen is gone for the season with a dislocated ankle and bone chip. It's not really a break, but tough. Tough for any injury. We don't like injuries. We say that all the time. So now it looks like the ship belongs to Alex Smith, and I'm going to be the one to say it. I love Alex Smith. What he has done is incredible. He does not look the same, and I know he's still in the process of coming back from this. And what he's coming back from is horrendous. The efforts are amazing. But with that being said, Washington, like, why aren't you playing Haskins at this point? Uh, and if you're not going to play Haskins at this point, like, why didn't you trade him? You're not winning the division. There's too many holes. Uh, you need other pieces, and that's fine. As a fan base, we were okay with this. Now all of a sudden it was, oh, we're going to make a run at the division. No, you're not. You're losing games that if you were going to make a run at the division, you should absolutely be winning. I know they're not out of it yet. Nobody in the East is out of it, but on the flip side, Daniel Jones played turnover free, which I think is a big, big thing. Washington turned the ball over, it seemed like a million times. I think the final number was 6. You're not going to win a game when you turn the ball over 6 times, plain and simple. The Giants were turnover free, and I think they really found an interesting 1-2 punch in the running game. If I'm New York, Freeman, you are a backup. Even when you come back healthy, you are on the bench. And I would continue rolling with the Gallman Alfred Morris 1-2 punch. It's kind of like a generic poor man's version of Thunder and Lightning, but it really worked against a pretty strong Washington run defense. So I like that out of New York. We'll see if they continue to build on that, and we'll go from there. Terry McLaurin, the guy is just matchup proof, and he's doing it with really very little help. I know Cam Sims had a great day, but it's not like Cam Sims is like demanding attention from defenses. Could you imagine having a above average, starting, wide receiver, or dare I say it, even borderline elite wide receiver? Could you imagine Juju Smith-Schuster or Allen Robinson coming to Washington and freeing up Terry McLaurin? That is scary. And for people who still don't believe in Terry McLaurin, I don't know what else he has to do. Yeah, that's about it. Uh, so from a wide receiver that is making noise, let's go to one who's not making noise. We're going to talk about Detroit versus Minnesota. Starters, the wide receivers, Thielen. Where is Adam Thielen? I don't know. I don't know what the situation is here. Targets are down. Um, he he's definitely just struggling this year. I don't know if it's a disconnect between him and Cousins, the offense as a whole. Who knows? But he had some flashes early in the year. I thought, the future was bright. It's just not seeming to click right now. And with saying that, now next week would be a week where he goes off for, 2 touchdowns and 125 yards. Before we make that call, though, we'll see who they're facing. And really, part of the reason why Thielen's numbers are down is because, well, his name is Dalvin Cook. Get to know him. I am pretty damn sure he is doing everything in his power, and he's going to do everything in his power to make a run at the MVP this year. And we know that anyone winning the MVP outside of a quarterback is rare. But he came back from this injury, and instead of looking limited, he looks like a brand new person, rejuvenated. Back-to-back 200-yard all-purpose games. Um, yeah, you have to. It's a must start. You have Dalvin Cook. You must start him from this point forward until otherwise noted. Um, Detroit. I don't have a whole lot to say about Detroit. Um, Detroit kind of reminds me right now of the Cincinnati Bengals under Marvin Lewis. What Detroit needs is a complete rebuild. They need to move on from Stafford. If you're not, within 3 years of your rookie deal, you need to go. So, yep, you're keeping Swift, you're keeping Galladay, you're keeping Okuda. Some of your very young pieces. They have a very decent offensive line. Continue to build on that, and the rest of these pieces need to go. On Johnson, AP. What's this guy's name? Matt Patricia. That's the first part of your rebuild. And I think that's going to happen. Whether it happens in season or the end of season, I just don't see Matt Patricia doing enough at this point to make it. And hey, maybe they face Washington in a few weeks, so maybe Washington will wipe the floor with them and get Matt Patricia fired like they did Ron Rivera last year when they beat Carolina. But ironic, he's now our coach. Moving on, Baltimore versus Indianapolis. Well, all right, I have some interesting takes on this. So we're going to start with Baltimore. Baltimore's defense is amazing. And honestly, as much as Baltimore is in the thick of things, and I think Baltimore's a very good team, it is because of the defense. Let me repeat that. Baltimore's team is as good as it is this year because of the defense. Because other than that, what I'm seeing this year on offense is you have a whole bunch of running backs. You're running some crazy like high school wishbone, um, iron T, like power T. I don't know what the offense is there, but it's not I don't know. It's not NFL caliber off. Lamar has really regressed this year, in my opinion. I know he got some stats and running, but he's just not throwing the ball. He's not taking that next step with being a quarterback throwing the ball. The wide receivers are non-existent. They did activate one Des Bryant. He only took 2 snaps. Only was on the field for one, which was a passing play. Don't freak out about that. Look, Des Bryant's not coming in here to light the world on fire. They're going to try and get him up and running and in full speed. You remember this guy's been out of the league for a while for playoffs. That's the whole point of this. Des Bryant should not be owned unless you're looking at potentially a very deep, like dynasty type league or something where you have very, very deep league and you have room on your bench. But this is not a guy you're planning on starting anytime soon. Um, so with Indianapolis, look, Rivers did a Rivers again. He had a great week. Now he had a crap week. Not that it surprises me. Baltimore has a very, very tough defense. Uh, the thing that confuses me a little bit again is Taylor struggled yet again and was outtouched yet again. I may be completely nuts on this, but if you can trade for Jonathan Taylor right now on the cheap, and I'm talking on the cheap, go ahead and get him. Because I actually could see him being one of those guys that kind of comes out of nowhere the last couple weeks of the season and really is a serviceable, at least flex for you, maybe possible starter. I know it's not pretty right now, but he did get in the end zone, and he still is involved, and that's key to keep an eye out. Moving on to two of the other teams in the division with Indy. Houston versus Jacksonville. So, for starters, my apologies to Luton. I was not thinking very highly of him, and he actually played pretty damn good. He had a hell of a pirouette that allowed him to score. Um, they made a game of this ultimately. The passing attack, though, was just too much for Houston, and Jacksonville's secondary just wasn't really able to contain it. What it really comes down to here is two bad teams, and I do believe that two bad teams, and Houston gets the win. Both these teams are retooling, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it, but that is what it is. Now to a fun game with one up and coming team and one perennial powerhouse. Kansas City and Carolina. Let me talk about Carolina here for starters. For one, I think it became very evident this week that Christian McCaffrey, when healthy and on the field, is the running back. There is no timeshare there, and any thought of a timeshare there is it's coach speak, it's lip speak. Christian McCaffrey is a force to be reckoned with in this league, and he makes that offense so much more dangerous. The sad part about it is he did get hurt. Luckily, this had nothing to do with the ankle sprain, which I was concerned how he would perform with that coming back, and he looked amazing. But now he has a shoulder issue, so we're gonna have to kind of wait and see that out, see how he practices this week. They're calling him day to day. And they really did. In all honesty, they gave Kansas City a run for their money. The D is just not there yet for Carolina, and I think that was the difference in this one. For Kansas City, it's still Patrick Mahomes' team. Wow, did Kelsey just have a hell of a day? Um, he is the clear tight end number one moving forward. And if you're fortunate enough to have him, well, that's one headache that you just don't have to worry about. You just start him every week. Yeah, every now and again he might put up a little bit of a dud, but his past week is a perfect example of why having him on your team is such an advantage. The other thing to note too is Le'Veon Bell is not a factor here. Le'Veon Bell is a backup to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know everybody was thinking this was going to get split and whatnot. And this is the key point, when Kansas City is running the ball, though, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire's show first. It's Clyde's game. It's Clyde's thing. He might be spelled from here to time to time, but he is going to be the guy to carry the ball. All right. So moving forward to other people carrying the ball, let's talk about the L.A. Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders game. I have no clue at this point who is carrying the ball for LA. It just, I think they're up to 15 different running backs at this point. You know, uh, Jackson's now dealing with an injury. Kelly all of a sudden emerges. Kalen Balaj. I, I have no clue. And here's my advice for this. In all honesty, I am just going to kind of, in all cases, steer clear of Los Angeles Chargers, the LA Chargers backfield. until Eckler comes back, and hopefully that's sooner than later. Um, there was a lot of scoring in this game, and you know what? Herbert is a beast, and you know who else is a beast because of Herbert is Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen may finish this year as the number one wide receiver. Uh, he is just getting peppered with targets. It's a situation where they're going to be throwing all the time. Love Keenan Allen. The sad part about it is the Chargers are snake bitten yet again. And I do mean snake bitten yet again. I don't know what to do with this team. I really don't. It's amazing to me how they just find ways to win. They're celebrating. They are ecstatic. They think they have the win, and he dropped it. The ball hit the ground. It's not a bad call. They made the right call. I feel for Herbert. I really do. Um, Bright future there, though. Definitely trending in the right direction there. And Anthony Lynn, I just don't think is going to be there to be part of it. I could be wrong on that. Maybe they give him a second year with the quarterback, but uh, I think ultimately they're going to move on there. Um, yeah. So talking about other teams with quarterbacks and finding their futures. Uh, Great game. It was a really fun game to watch. We're talking about Miami versus Arizona. And look, I still don't understand the move to bring Tua in, but hey, it's working. And Miami's for real. They have a underrated defense, amazing secondary. Uh, the running game situation in Miami's a little rough right now because of some injuries, but um, yeah, they're getting wins, and I think till it's all said and done, both these teams are ultimately going to be contending for a wild card spot, in my opinion. They might not be there yet, but they're definitely trending in the right direction. For Arizona, I think it's painfully obvious they still need a running back. Kenyon Drake just has not been it this year. Um, Chase Edmond, I was surprised. Here was your opportunity, and he really, in my opinion, disappointed. So, that's an area they're missing. What really makes Arizona really tremendous is two players. You have two young players, two short players. I don't know if that makes a difference. But you have Buda Baker on defense, and you have Kyler Murray on offense. And Kyler Murray right now looks like a much better version of Lamar Jackson, only because he can throw the ball better. But he's a running threat. I'm still not a fan of running quarterbacks. I'm on record saying that. Uh, but we'll see. Um, you got to remember, it's only his second year. He's still growing, but Arizona, they're doing good things. The one thing that's kind of surprising me is I just, and maybe, look, I've always said wide receivers are the first year in a new team, and the statistics prove it, is always a little down. But DeAndre Hopkins this year is just not having the type of year he normally does. So keep that in mind. This is a little nugget we put in the back of our head. Um, Kind of watch how he goes the rest of the year, and then next year you're probably going to get him a little bit on the cheaper side. Maybe he falls to the second round next year. That's a steal. You go out and you grab him if that occurs. Ah, so now the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh. Well, this game did not go the way anyone thought it would go. Wow, the game script just got flipped, and Gilbert, who's now their fourth, fifth, I don't know, not their original starting quarterback, not their original backup quarterback. Fourth, it's the fourth quarterback to play this year. May just screw the Cowboys enough this season, him combined with Andy Dalton, to just push them down the draft board a little bit. They won't get a great pick. Because in all honesty, I think if Gilbert started the game against the Eagles, they would have won. Um, yeah, they gave the Steelers a run for it here. The defense played a little better. The Steelers couldn't really get a running game going. Pollard, I've kind of talked about this. I think Ezekiel Elliott is not where he needs to be this year. And I think that was very evident this past week watching Pollard burst through holes. There's just a different explosion there. Don't get me wrong, Ezekiel Elliott put up some stats too. But moving forward, I'm going to be really surprised to see this become a bell cow situation unless there's an injury. I think you're going to see a shared backfield the rest of the way between Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Pardon me. So, the good news about this is, well, the Steelers still remain undefeated. They did get the win. And Ben did a traditional Ben Roethlisberger. He ended up playing this game on 2 injured knees. He hurt both knees in the game, still stayed in the game. And now, on top of it, apparently he's been added to a COVID list amongst 4 other Pittsburgh Steelers. Uh, so who knows what's coming for Pittsburgh? Look, the truth of the matter is, when healthy, and I don't know what's going on with COVID, but when healthy, Pittsburgh has an amazing defense. Minkah Fitzpatrick is probably one of the top 3 safeties in the league right now. It does make a tremendous difference, and you saw that last year when they brought him there. They have a great stable of wide receivers, and they have running backs that are capable of carrying the rock. Pittsburgh's going to be dangerous as long as Ben stays healthy. So it is going to be interesting to see what kind of comes of things with the COVID list, with the knee injuries. We'll see what materializes there in Pittsburgh. On to the letdown game of the night. This was the game that everybody was super excited for. It was going to be the heavyweight battle, Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. And the best part about this game that everyone was super excited about was Tom Brady got to roll out his shiny new toy in Antonio Brown. And it looked like more of a knockoff version. It wasn't a Transformer, this was a GoBot. So, New Orleans was atrocious. Couldn't run the ball, couldn't catch the ball, couldn't complete the ball, couldn't anything. Defense even came out flat in this game. New Orleans, all 3 of their quarterbacks. So you have New Orleans, the weird situation there where you have Taysom Hill, who's this gadget player who comes in quarterbacks from time to time, and you have Drew Brees there. But they also pulled Drew Brees because they were beating Tampa Bay so bad and put in Jameis Winston. And all 3 quarterbacks, all 3 of them, had a better QBR than Tom Brady. And by a long shot, not by a little bit. Tom Brady was in the 40s. Jameis Winston was in the 90s. He was the lowest for New Orleans. So Tom Brady out of 4 quarterbacks that took snaps on Sunday night, where'd you finish? 4th. Yeah. Uh, and the sad part about this was New Orleans just whooped up on Tampa Bay, and they did it without Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas barely made a dent in this game, which means New Orleans can get better. They're going to get better. So, Tom Brady, you are definitely looking uphill at your competition right now as you are steadily in 2nd place in the division. That doesn't mean they can't get past it. I still think I'm still going with them. I think they work it out. But I think that was it. I think New Orleans came in and made a statement here. So many people were talking about Tampa Bay being locked, at least get to the conference championship and all these weapons. And New Orleans said, nope, we're going to make it very clear that that is not the case. And then the Monday night game, which was supposed to be boring and miserable and no one really cared about, New England versus the New York Jets. Just end the season. Or should we? Is Gase going to turn it around? However, this game was actually surprisingly close, surprisingly competitive. It actually came down to a last-second field goal from one Nick Folk to put the Patriots on top. So, the quick and easy version of this is, 1, Frank Gore is still being used too much in this offense. Turn the ball over to Perine. Let him run the ball. Flacco ended up starting this game because, well, Darnold's still dealing with issues. Threw the ball around. New England allowed the Jets to beat them deep a couple of times, and New England is, well, New England. Um, Cam ran the ball in for 2 touchdowns from the goal line. It's almost a given. I don't understand how you can allow it to happen. You know that's what the play is going to be. If they're on the goal line, Cam is going to do a quarterback sneak. Um, and yeah, he found Jacoby Myers quite a bit. It's definitely clear that he's the number one wide receiver, but Cam just he does not look like an elite, not even an above average pocket passer right now. He really doesn't. Um, so with that being said, um, New England gets the win. They say that's not going to derail their rebuild, and it shouldn't. And the Jets still suck. Um, yeah, there you go. So let's run out the clock. All right. So running out the clock today. Um, I want to talk about it's going to be kind of focused on fantasy. And the first one is football versus fantasy. And we've said this before that football, the actual football teams don't give a crap about your fantasy team. Why do I know this? Well, Mike Davis, Zacchaeus, Mac. You know all these names, right? They all had pretty significant stat lines this week for their respective teams. All wide receivers. But I highly doubt they were started at, if at all, very little by many fantasy owners. It's just the nature of the game, and man, it drives you nuts because you have these smash spots or these great matchups, and all you want to see is those primetime big name players, the guys you're starting on your fantasy team, go and put up the 150 plus yards and 2 touchdowns or whatever it might be. And then here comes this practice squad player or nobody or the Joe Schmo off the street. And yeah, it's a great media story, but it doesn't help you for fantasy. And then the worst part about it is you have these people that run out and pick them up on waivers and start them and get 0 or next to nothing the following week because they chase points. So that is the brutal part of football versus fantasy. And for my final kneel down today, we're going to talk about, well, the fantasy aspect of this game. And that is now is the time to identify your path to the playoffs and ultimately to winning the championship. I've always said there are 3 aspects in having a successful fantasy season. One is drafting your team. You have to be able to draft somewhat of a semblance of a team. Now, that doesn't mean that whatever your team is that you draft, that's your final product, because the next phase to that is managing your team. And that includes trades, that includes pickups, that includes not panicking when you lose Saquon Barkley in the first round, and kicking and scratching and clawing your way to try and get to the playoffs. Because once you get to the playoffs, anything's possible. And the last is ultimately you need luck. Look, nobody knows the future. Nobody knows inside and out 100%. We look at these smash spots and it doesn't always happen. So you need luck. You need to be able to just kind of catch all the lightning in the bottle. But part of that does take a little bit of work and identifying things. And that's what time it is now. Most of your leagues, you should be coming up on your trade deadlines in the next week or two. And it's very important for you to kind of start to identify what your team may look like as the playoffs come up, or if you're not looking as a lock for the playoffs, how to get to the playoffs, making trades, picking players up. Bye weeks are going to be coming to an end shortly. And once bye weeks are done, then it becomes important to look at your team makeup. That's when it might be important for you to go grab that handcuff. If you're the number one offense in terms of rushing the ball, well, then that's when you might want to handcuff that running back, because if they go down, i.e., looking at, it might be a little bit of a poor example, but look at Dallas. Now, Pollard might end up getting picked up this week, but normally in a given season, Zeke Elliott would be the workhorse running back there. So what ends up happening? Well, you should be handcuffing him with Pollard. If he goes down, you plug him into that offense. He's an every down running back. Everything's great. Alexander Madison's another one in Minnesota. These are the things that you're starting to look at, and we're here for you. If you have any questions, if you're not sure, who I should be starting or who I should be targeting, or I need to make a trade to improve my wide receivers or tight ends, who might be a great fit, send your questions to us. We'll gladly help. Either myself, my good friends over the Couch GMs. There's lots of different fantasy outlets out there. You don't have to be the smartest man in the room. You don't have to go in it alone. That's why these shows and pods and different things exist. So I wish you the best. It's week 10 in the NFL. We are way beyond the halfway point now. For fantasy purposes, we're way beyond the halfway point. So you have roughly about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how your season works out, left to try and make a run to the playoffs. So now's the time to do it. You can't wait anymore. You can't hope anymore. If you're struggling, you got to get those wins. So it's time to identify your matchups. It's time to maybe make some strange starts, play some upside, and take some chances. So again, we're here for you. We wish you the best of luck. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do and you haven't done so yet, make sure you click the subscribe button. Make sure you follow us. Our videos are still going to be coming out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, although they might be coming now a little bit later in the day. We have a little bit of a schedule change, but you'll still be able to find them on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Share, get out there. You have comments about the show, you don't agree with me, please let me know. With that, for the First and 10 Club, I'm Mark D. Let's go football.